What's up YouTube, this is your boy Jay Ronin with another deck profile, and today we're going to go over the most degenerate deck profile that I have so far. And this deck is tons of fun. It goes around a lot of the meta, and at the same time its plays are hated. So if you want to be the most hated guy at your locals, this is the deck for you. This is Gren Maju, the Eiza deck profile from Jay Ronin. So let's start with the monsters, and obviously first and foremost we need 3 Gren Maju. It's weird that we just got a rarity bump on this card because it's been a common for the longest time, and it being a common card, topping a couple of tournaments here and there. I'm trying to get the glare the hell out of there. Hold on. It being a common card, just winning a couple of tournaments here and there, it was kind of like a weird thing. And we finally have a super rare version of it from the OTS pack 12, I believe. Yeah. So we run obviously 3 Gren Maju Eiza. If you don't know what this card does, its effect reads as follows. This attack and defense, this card's attack and defense are each equal to the number of your banished cards times 400. So that's one of the things that I've seen a couple of people get wrong. They think that he gains attack and defense equal to the banished cards, but only your banished cards count. So keep that in mind. And the reason why we run all the other cards that banish your opponent's cards, it's mostly to disrupt their plays, not to power Gren Maju that much. The cards that we run to banish your own cards, so we're going to power Gren Maju. And then we got the second MVP of the deck. We are running 3 Necrofaces because this card recently came off the ban list, and we can run it at 3 now. So that's actually a huge boost for the deck, because this is the one thing that does both. This is the one card that fuels your Gren Maju's attack, and at the same time it messes up your opponent's plays, because if you don't know what this card does, its effect reads as follows. When this card is normal summon, shuffle all removed from play cards into their owner's grave and into the owner's decks. This card gains 100 attack for each of those cards. When this card is removed from play, both players remove from play the top 5 cards of their deck. So obviously, because of the term removed from play, you can see that this is a pretty old type of card. Basically, when this card is banished, you and your opponent need to banish the top 5 cards of your deck. So that's actually really good, because if you banish one of these Necrofaces, and there's multiple ways of doing it in this deck. You have Allure of Darkness, you can banish it momentarily with Gold Sarcophagus. Its effect will trigger, and then you banish the top 5 cards of your deck. Your opponent does the same. If you so happen to banish another copy of Necroface, its effect will trigger, banishing another 5 cards from the top of your deck, and then your opponent too. So banishing one Necroface and then hitting another Necroface off of that means that you're going to banish the top 10 cards of your opponent's deck. And I don't know a lot of decks that can actually survive that. Just because of that, if they have multiple copies of Pot of Desires, they might think twice about activating them, because they're going to banish another 10 cards from the top of the decks. And if you hit your 3 copies of if you hit your 3rd copy of Necroface off the second banishment, then you just banish 15 cards from the top of the deck. That's half of the deck gone, because they're going to draw 5 cards in their opening hand and then having 15 banished. It's, you know, key combo pieces, cards that they need, things like that. They're all going to be gone. So you having a 60 card deck, I don't know if I mentioned this is a 60 card deck, doesn't really hurt you, because you have plenty of cards to banish. That's the whole point of this deck. So Necroface being a 3, it's a huge boost for this deck, and you know, obviously we're running 3 on it now. We are also running 3 Eater of Millions. This is one of the cards that is going to fuel your Maju, because to special summon this card, you need to banish 5 cards from either your hand, cards you control, or from your extra deck face down. Eater of Millions gains 100 attack for each banished card, and then during the first battle, you can banish the monster that Eater of Millions is battling with face down. So every time this monster attacks your opponent, you can banish that monster that Eater of Millions is attacking into face down. So it's good. And also, this card cannot be tributed. So they cannot kaiju this card if you're running against Layer of Darkness. They can't tribute this with Lily if you're playing against Hakai, layer, Unchained. They can't tribute this with the Unchained Disaster or anything like that, so they need to run this in battle. But that means they're going to have to attack it twice, because the first time they attack it as well, you could just banish that card face down. So great. It's also a level 1, which is going to work for some of our extra deck monsters. And we are running triple Gamma Seal because they're kaijus and you want to disrupt your opponent. So whenever they make these, break my board type of boards, if you go second, obviously we have kaijus for that. And then on top of that, we have the original kaiju, Lava Golem, which does eat up your normal summon, but it takes out 2 monsters your opponent controls rather than just 1, like the kaiju does. Right? Kaijus, you tribute 1 monster your opponent controls regardless of the level. With Lava Golem, you tribute 2 of your opponent's monsters, and then they take burn damage every turn. And so the idea for this deck is being a stall deck more than anything. All you want to do is stall as much as possible, banish as much as possible from your deck, and then normal summon your Gren Maju and just whack your opponent across the head with 18,000 attack or so. So to help the stall strategy, we have 2 Inspector Borders. If you go first, just sit on it. A lot of decks don't really know what to do with it because it's a level 4 and it's 2,000 attack, 2,000 defense. And if they can't activate monster effects, it's really hard for them to run them over. So 2 Inspector Borders sometimes buys you the time that you need to draw into your Pot of Desires and start banishing your stuff. And also to help with the stalling, we are running 3 Swift Scarecrows and 3 Battle Faders. Out of this, the one that gets the most value is Battle Fader because it does special summon itself. And then you can use it to link summon into something, and then at that point it gets banished. So it also fuels the attack and defense of your Gren Maju, and Swift Scarecrow just goes to the graveyard. So that's it. And then to disrupt your opponent, 3 DD Crows, because we like banishing stuff. And again, this is not really going to fuel the attack of your Gren Maju. This is just to obviously banish key combo pieces from your opponent's graveyard, because a lot of decks utilize the graveyard a lot, not this one. And then on that same note about stalling, we are running triple Summon Limit. You know what this does. Summon Limit prevents your opponent and yourself from summoning more than twice. But then again, we really don't summon that much in this deck. It's meant for just summon 1 Gren Maju and then just whack your opponent across. So that actually works to, again, stall until you get your combo pieces and your banished pile set up. Also, there can only be 1. This is one of my favorite floodgates because not a lot of decks can do a lot with just 1 type of monster, and a lot of decks run multiple. Like they don't have a lot of types in the same deck. It's all cybers, or it's all zombies, or it's all spellcasters. So having forcing your opponent to play with just 1 monster is really good. And this deck does have multiple different types of monsters, right? We have Gren Maju as a fiend, and then DD Crow is a winged beast, and Battle Fader, it's something else. The hell's Battle Fader? It's a fiend, but whatever. Swift Scarecrow is a machine. Same with Spectre Border. So these things are all over the place, so it doesn't really affect us. And it, like I said, it's mostly just to force your opponent into limiting their plays. So excellent trap card. I'm trying to get the ultra rare version. I think I only have 1 of them. We are running triple Storm Dragon's Return. This is also one of the best cards in this deck. I like it a lot because a lot of times the problem was that when activating 1 Necrophase, sometimes you would banish your key combo pieces. Like you would banish 2 of your Gren Majus if you were really unlucky. And if you activate Desires, you don't know if the 3rd Gren Maju it's in that banished pile from Pot of Desires. So the only thing to do would be to, if you go into your 2nd Necrophase, normal summon it so that you could put all the banished cards back in the deck and hopefully draw into your Gren Maju. But that would also put the banished cards from your opponent back into their decks. So that was kind of like a last resort type of thing. But Storm Dragon's Return's effect reads as follows. Target 1 banished monster. Special summon it to your field, but return it to the hand during the end phase. You can only activate 1 Storm Dragon's Return per turn. So this is great because if you happen to banish your Gren Maju off your neck or face, you can set this, and then during your opponent's main phase to activate or whatever, summon your Gren Maju. It'll sit there with how many, whatever many attacks it has, and then at the end of the phase, it's going to go back to your hand, so you can then normal summon it whenever you need to, and then, you know, make sure that you get maximum damage attacking your opponent. So it's a great card. Because we are running multiple cards that are floodgates, it's easier for your opponent to figure out that your back row is going to be kind of important. So they're going to start attacking that if they have back row removal. So we run 2 Waking the Dragons. Obviously, if they're trying to hit your Stone Dragons or something that they know might be a floodgate, they're going to hit this, and then you can special summon any monster from your extra deck, which is great. Or if you want, you can actually summon your Gren Maju directly from your deck, depending on the situation. Another thing that we run, it's 1 different dimension ground, and this card, what it does is any monster sent to the graveyard this turn is banished instead. So it's like a mini Microcosmos, which we run 1 of because it's limited. So we are also running 1 Microcosmos, and for the last of our limited traps, we are running 1 Red Reboot because we want that 1 Gren Maju attack to go through. Red Reboot is kind of important to make sure that it goes through. And then onto the spells. So we are running 3 Pot of Desires because we have plenty of cards to banish. So it doesn't really matter how many we banish. It doesn't really matter if they ash your Pot of Desires on it. That stank bitch! A lot of times, you know, I understand that it could be like devastating for some decks if somebody ashes your Pot of Desires because you do have to pay the cost. In this case, it's a win-win situation because activating Pot of Desire banishes 10 cards from your deck, which is going to give your Gren Maju 4,000 attack. And if you happen to draw 2 cards, then great. If not, then it doesn't matter. When you do summon your Gren Maju, you're going to have the attack that you need. I did mention that this was a degenerate deck profile, and here's where the degeneracy comes from. We are running triple Mystic Mine. So this card, surprisingly enough, did not get hit on the last ban list. They didn't get limited, they didn't get semi-limited, they just let it be. And this is a really good card because for the most part, this is not a combo deck. So you don't have a lot of monsters. Your opponent is the one that's going to go ham, summoning this, summoning that, summoning this, summoning that. And then if you happen to activate Mystic Mine that you can resolve, then you can just sit on it. They won't be able to attack you while you draw into the key cards that you're looking for. And then once they have 4 or 5 different monsters and you get your 1 Gren Maju, you can actually attack them. And since they control the most monsters on the field, they won't be able to activate effects. You only have to worry about the back row. That's the reason why we have things like Red Reboot. So this is a really good card to use on this deck, as degenerate as it may be. We are also running triple Soul Absorption. And what this card does, it gets you 500 life points for each card that gets banished. So if you have 2 of these on the field and you activate 1 Pot of Desires, you are gaining 10,000 life points. So that's the reason why you don't get OTK on this deck, because if you activate this, I mean, who the hell is going to OTK you with 18,000 life points? And this is just off 1 Desires. If your opponent starts going off their plays and they start banishing some stuff, if they banish 5 cards during their plays, that's 5,000 more life points, and it just keeps piling up. So a lot of times you can just sit there and, you know, take a couple of attacks before activating your Swift Scarecrow and before activating your Battle Fader and stuff like that. So this is always good, and it's also a good back row removal bait because your opponent obviously doesn't want to let you gain a ton of life points, so they're going to try to get rid of it as soon as possible. And we are also running Triple Call by the Grave. Again, banishing your opponent's cards doesn't give you attack for your Gren Maju, but it's just obviously good for disrupting their graveyard, stopping hand traps and stuff like that. So great card, Call by the Grave. We are also running 2 Hate Trunates, and the reason why we run 2 Hate Trunates is the same reason why we run Red Reboot, right? Except Red Reboot is a one-off. So if you get to summon your Gren Maju, you have 20,000 attack or whatever, and you're trying to attack into your opponent and they have a heavy back row, you know, activate Hate Trunate, put all set cards from their side of the field and yours back in the hand, and then, you know, safely run over their monsters. We are also running double Allure of Darkness. I have been thinking about upping this to 3, But like I said, we are running a couple of monsters that are really not dark monsters. Swift Scarecrow is Earth, Inspector Border is Light, Kaijus are Water, and stuff like that. So I have, and Gren Maju is Fire. So there's been a couple of times where I have an Allure of Darkness in my hand and nothing to banish, and I don't want to risk it. So that's why we kind of dial this back to 2. And it's been working fine like that. Banishing, if you have a Necrophase and an Allure of Darkness in your hand, that's obviously optimal because you can just activate Allure of Darkness, banish your Necrophase, and then start banishing your opponent's stuff from there. So that's a really, really good play. We are running a ton of one-offs in this deck. One of them is Quiet Life. If you don't know what Quiet Life does, in a nutshell, if your opponent or yourself special summon, you cannot normal summon. And if you or your opponent's normal summons, you cannot special summon. So it's another one of those stall cards. If you really like this and if you really want to go more into it, you could run more. One, it's been fine because you have so many floodgates that a lot of times it might be a little bit overwhelming. So one Quiet Life for whenever you do go into it, it's actually pretty good. If your opponent normal summons, they can't special summon. If they special summon, they can't normal summon. So that's an extension right there that they can't use. Because you got limited, we are running 1 instant fusion, otherwise we'll be running more. And I do get why this was limited. This card is absolutely broken. Not to sound like Sam from Team Samurai X, because he overhypes the crap out of everything, including polymerization. But this card is broken, because you could just pay 1,000 life points and summon any level 5 or lower fusion monster, and it gets destroyed at the end of the turn, but it doesn't really matter, because the play that we're doing with instant fusion is summoning 1,000 Eyes Restrict, sucking up one of your opponent's monsters, and then tributing 1,000 Eyes Restrict for relinquished anima, and then sucking up another one of your opponent's monsters. So if this does happen to resolve, it's a really, really good play. You know, get relinquished 1,000 Eyes Restricts, suck something up, and then for relinquished anima, if your opponent doesn't have anything there, you could just Kaiju a monster and put the Kaiju in that area and then have a target for relinquished anima. Another limited card that we are running is Gold Sarcophagus. And Gold Sarcophagus is a really old card. It says banish 1 card from your deck face up during the second standby phase of this card's activation. Add that card to your hand. So obviously if you activate this and you banish a Necrophase, it'll trigger that Necrophase, so banishing the top 5 cards of your deck and your opponent's deck. And if you hit another Necrophase, it'll trigger again. So this is one of those cards that gets that play rolling, and it's obviously limited, so that's the only reason why we play 1. If we had more, we play more, obviously, but it's one of those cards that is actually absolutely broken as well. We are running 1 Card of the Mice because it was limited. And this is something that I'm thinking, because sometimes you actually, since you have all these traps and all these floodgates, you want to set all that. And if you really want to go back into your hand and draw a couple more cards, Cards of the Mask is a really good card. It does limit you from special summoning, for the most part. You're not going to special summon anyway, so it doesn't really affect us that much. And then another one of the MVPs from this deck is Dimensional Fissure. So if you don't know what Dimensional Fissure does, its effect reads as follows. Any monster sent to the graveyard is banished instead. So obviously if you see this in your opening hand, this is really, really good, because a lot of decks rely on the graveyard a lot. So just activating this and then having a Battle Fader on your hand could get you through a couple of turns because your opponent won't be able to do anything. So excellent card. If there was, if it was not limited, obviously we would running more. And then last but not least, if you've been seeing my deck profiles, I put one of these in each deck, 1 Monster Reborn and 1 Raigeki, because both of them are limited, and I don't know why you would not play them. I really don't understand. Monster Reborn is a free extender. It targets any monster in your or your opponent's graveyard. So you could take one of their boss monsters, you could bring something back from yours, and it's an excellent negate bait. If your opponent has a negate that will stop a spell, they will use it on Monster Reborn, because nobody wants you to get a free monster. And the same thing goes with Raigeki. I remember when Raigeki used to be like a $30 card, and I would expect not everybody to run it, but now it's like $5. So why would you not be running a Raigeki on everything you have? It's a board wipe. Well, it's on your opponent's side of the field only, and it's the same thing. If your opponent has a negate that stops either everything or spells, they will use it on Raigeki, because if they don't, they're gonna lose all their monsters. So obviously 1 Raigeki, 1 Monster Reborn on everything. I don't understand people that don't. For the extra deck, we are running 1000 Hydra Strix, and the only reason why we're running this is because it's your instant fusion target. What happens if they negate your instant fusion? Does this become a dead card in your extra deck? Not really, because when summoning Eater of Millions, you need to banish. You can banish up to minimum 5 cards from your extra deck. So if you activated instant fusion and they negated it, just banish it with Eater of Millions and you're fine. We are running triple relinquished anima because we are running Battle Fader, who's a level 1, and we are running Eater of Millions, who's a level 1. If for whatever reason they negate your Eater of Millions effect, you can just go into relinquished anima because it requires one level 1 monster accept a token, and then target a monster it points to and suck it up, right? And obviously going into 1000 Hydra Strix with your instant fusion and then using that for your relinquished anima and sucking something up, it works as well. To stop the attacks, if you don't want to go into relinquished anima because there's nothing pointing there or whatever, and you have a Battle Fader from the last turn on your side of the field, you can go into a Link Revo. We are running double Link Revo. And then for your regular disruption, if there's anything that's bothering you, obviously one Nightmare Phoenix. We are also running one Security Dragon to bounce something because it just requires 2 monsters, so it's really good. And obviously it needs to be cold linked, so if your opponent has something in there that's linking up, or in the extra monsters that's linking up, you can just use 2 monsters to summon Security Dragon and bounce something, so it's good. And then we have our Waking the Dragon targets, and we have one Topologic Trisbina because we like banishing stuff. We have Topologic Suroboros because we like banishing stuff. And then obviously the big beat stick heavy hitters. We have one Ray Raptor Ultimate Falcon. We have one Clear Wing Synchro Dragon. If you require the negate, and obviously Ray Raptor doesn't need any introduction. It's unaffected by everything. 3500 attack. You need to run it out by battle. We are running one Super Heavy Samurai Steam Train King, and the main reason is because it has a big booty. It's 4800 defense. And beat sticks for your Waking the Dragons. We are running one 5-headed dragon and one Blue Eyes Alternative Ultimate Dragon. Obviously, the 5-headed dragon is just 5k both ways, right? Doesn't really matter. And the Blue Eyes Alternative Ultimate Dragon, it does pop 1 card. Obviously, if you fusion summon it by using a Blue Eyes Alternative Dragon, which you can in this deck, it pops 3 cards. But if not, at the very least, it pops 1 card. And it is 4500, so it's a good beat stick. Alright, so this is it, everybody. This is my Degenerate Gren Maju deck. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Hope you like this video, and see you next time.